Welcome to Alpha Coding Podcast, an all-access pass to medical coding and billing pro tips that help you start your week off smarter. And now, here is your host, Toni Elhoms.
Welcome to the Alpha Coding Podcast series. I am your host, Toni Elhoms. If you like what you're hearing, hit that subscribe button now so you never miss another episode. Welcome to episode 3 of the podcast. Thanks for spending your time with me on another Alpha Monday. I invited a special guest to join us on today's show, and our guest is a hugely successful coding professional that is here to give her best pro tips for navigating the coding profession. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Anchor. Anchor is the easiest way to produce a podcast, and it's completely free. The platform even provides creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast all from your phone or computer. Anchor will even distribute your podcast so that it can be heard on all downloadable platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many others. You can even make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It truly is your one-stop shop for podcasting. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Our guest for today is Victoria Moll, and she joins us from Fleetwood, Pennsylvania. Victoria is the owner of Contempo Coding and holds multiple credentials from the American Academy of Professional Coders, also known as the AAPC. She is an approved AAPC instructor and a fellow. She was recently selected to join AAPC's Chapter Association Board of Directors. She is a thought leader in the coding community, as well as a dynamic educator and speaker. She has spoken to numerous AAPC chapters across Pennsylvania and has presented nationally at AAPC's HealthCon. Her passion is all about making the medical coding education experience affordable and engaging. I invited her on the show today to discuss strategies for new professionals as well as veterans on navigating the coding profession, opportunities that exist, and her best tips for success. Thank you for joining us today, Victoria.
Hey, thanks for having me, Toni. I'm really excited to be here and speak today on the podcast.
Absolutely. So tell us more about your career journey and what has worked best for you.
You know, I'm someone who had very humble beginnings. I would love to say I'm one of those people that, I finished high school and went right into college and got my bachelor's degree, but that was not my story at all. I hit a lot of stumbling blocks and roadblocks on the way up. I am a community college student. I did go to the business school of the community college, Reading Community College, which is an extremely impoverished and crime-ridden, unfortunately, area, but it has wonderful perks to it. So I am a Reading Community College student through their billing and coding program. Sometimes I say it's surprising to me that I've even been successful as a coder because of just the struggles I had through that program. For example, the person that was actually teaching, the certified coder teacher, was not present when I was going through the program, and they had kind of a nurse fill in. And one of the things she would say was, I think it was with the ICD-10 books, we would look up codes and she'd be like, oh, this book is so funny. I don't get it sometimes. You look up words and then it says see condition, and then you look under the word condition, but then there's nothing there. So I had a few things to really learn on my feet once I got into coding. But I think the things that have really helped me out, just kind of building myself up, first off, volunteerism, and second, authenticity. So the volunteerism, I think, has always helped me learn new people, learn new tasks, show off my skills, anything that you can do to volunteer it shows also that you're a team player. the authenticity has been a little bit of a difficult journey because, when you're not in a prominent role and you're just starting out, the fact that you might be a little bit, different or unique or a bit of a go-getter can kind of catch people a little bit and make them question things. So having to be true to myself was a little bit difficult at first because people weren't quite catching on yet. But once I got further on in my journey, it really helped out. I think sometimes, organizations don't always know quite what to do with me because I'm very intelligent and well spoken and I educate well, but I'm also kind of unique and like I don't do things. I have this creative side to me. Like I'm really more so a creative type than I am like an analytical type of person. So I always want to throw things out and present them in a way that's a little bit more like colorful and unique. And I think people sometimes don't quite know what to do with that because a lot of the higher up positions that we have, even just in business, not just coding in general, there are a lot of like sitting in meetings all day and answering emails. And
Right.
that's not what I'm good at.
That's awesome. Your story is really inspiring. And I think that I love the fact that you're honest about where you came from and that it was, humble beginnings. And that's so cool. So tell us more about Contempo Coding and what your company offers.
So I'm an AAPC instructor and I have a license right now. I teach risk adjustment coding. So what I'm trying to do is just offer some on-demand sessions. That's one of my big things is on-demand for people that are like, I can just kind of navigate this through myself without a whole lot of assistance. So I do a risk adjustment course right now. And then I also have some free webinars that I offer because, I like to give back. The AAPC and what they've provided to me and allowed me to elevate in my career, I just want to give back to my fellow coding community. So I do some free webinars and I'm going to be expanding soon to be doing some more paid trainings and some more paid webinar services in 2020. So for example, the E&M changes right now are going to be a big, big thing. So I'm hoping to put together like a mini course on that. And then as well as some general coding classes. I want to do some basics of medical coding, advanced medical coding, like certification prep. And my big, big goal is to make a whole program just for plastic and reconstructive surgery coding, because I know that's an area where we kind of lack, especially with these specialty societies. They have these huge like seminars you can go to and they're very, very expensive. And for, Susie Coder, who's working, at the front desk and doesn't have a lot of money and they don't want to pay for her to, go out to a large seminar in Vegas, she doesn't have a lot of resources. So I want to put something out there that's something that's affordable for the coder to learn that specialty.
That is so cool and definitely needed. Like you said, it's all about giving back. And the AAPC has also been so beneficial to me. And so I'm right there with you. Let's give back and let's provide resources and tools to the people that are in this profession and the newbies that are coming in, because that's what it's all about, giving back.
Oh, absolutely. And, my boyfriend yells at me sometimes because he's like, if you're good at something, you should get paid for it. And I'm like, yes. And for a lot of things I do, but there's also a lot of opportunities that I want to give other people just to give back.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. So what are some ways that new professionals can break into the industry?
Well, the key thing is if you're in a program that offers an internship, you have to take that internship because that is your foot in the door. That's actually how I got started. When I finished my program through community college, they had an internship program and I interned at Reading Hospital and they had just formed at that time their physician group. So, when these areas were just forming these physician groups years ago, they hired people like crazy because they were buying up practices, buying up practices, buying up practices. So I was hired right off my internship. And I know a good amount of people that that's happened to as well, because it's an awesome opportunity to show who you are, what you can offer, that you're a team player. The other thing I say is, make sure you get your resume done. There's a lot of really great places out there now, like Project Resume, that does resumes just for coders. So get that good resume, get everything you've done, get it together and throw it up on like Coders Direct, where they recruit just for coders. And also LinkedIn is huge. I mean, you can network with so many recruiters now so easily. So get in there on LinkedIn and make sure that you put up like a nice photo. It doesn't have to be like a professional headshot. Not everyone has the time or the money, but you can take a pretty decent selfie today, like go outside, get some good lighting, snap a nice photo, or have a friend shoot one for you. No Snapchat filters, keep those kind of on the wayside. But at least for your LinkedIn profile, and just promote yourself. Get in touch with those recruiters, let them know that you're looking for something. And then also volunteer at your AAPC chapters. And then when you're volunteering, kind of, not to be boastful, but show off a little bit on LinkedIn what you're doing. Like, hey, I helped find this amazing speaker for our chapter today, and I'm so grateful that I was able to provide this opportunity to all of our members. Just get in, even if you can find something entry level. And I know that's hard because people, when they get into coding, they want to get right into coding. But sometimes those entry level positions that you can get, a lot of institutions now will let you move up pretty quickly within, 3 months, 6 months. So as long as you have that foot in the door, oftentimes they need to promote someone from within versus an external candidate.
That is such an amazing story and perspective. And I could not agree more. I definitely got my foot in the door by starting at the bottom. And like you said, with the internships, it's all about positioning yourself with any organization to add more value.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So what is your best advice for coding apprentices, CPCAs specifically, and newbies that are struggling to land their first coding job?
So my advice is that networking is going to be your best friend. So you have to get out to those chapter meetings. You have to find the people that are already working in the industry that can speak for you, that can give you those tips on what positions are opening up. And even if you're not finding anything right away, which I know is a huge frustration for people, and it's so frustrating, you have to keep your certifications active. Don't let those CEUs go till the last minute. Keep those up. There's great resources now for free CEUs that you don't have to pay a lot of money out of pocket in order to keep them up. So it is so worth it, but it is going to be a little bit hard. I always say, everyone says nurses eat their young, but at least nurses get hired right out of school. In medical coding, it's not always that. We are reluctant, and you have to understand it's because of the risk involved. There's a huge financial risk that a lot of people see when hiring apprentice coders. So you just have to keep at it and prove to them that you know what you're talking about. If it's something even as simple as, you got a really good grade in school or on your exam, that's something you should show off and promote yourself. No one's going to speak up for you but yourself. So in some ways it is going to seem kind of boastful, but as long as you phrase it delicately, show it off not as, oh, look what I did, but hey, look what I'm providing to the industry. That's a more gentle way to spin it.
Awesome. That's great advice. What would you say to a certified coder that has went through their training, they're good to go, they went through their courses, and they were hired for more of a billing role than an actual traditional coding role, and they're really struggling to find their way? What would be your best advice for them?
Okay, so here's my advice for that. Take every project that comes your way. I have sat in so many meetings or rev cycle town halls where there's new projects coming up, and there's a lot of stuff going on that maybe isn't exactly what you're looking for right now. But when you volunteer to take these projects, even if it's like, oh, we need someone to backload schedules because we're going on to a new system, this is a way to show that you are a team player. It's a way to learn new skills and show them what you have to offer. The other thing I can say is offer to cross cover, because a lot of times people like to have that cross coverage across different specialties or payment posting or all kinds of stuff like that. So if you show that you're someone that is willing to take that sacrifice for the greater good, that speaks a lot to employers. And so when you're having these meetings with people and it's like dead silence and no one wants to speak up, that's your opportunity. Speak up and say that you are willing to help and you're willing to take on maybe some of the roles that not everyone else wants to take on.
That is fantastic advice. And I love that. Serve as a backup or doing the cross training, taking advantage of that. Again, positioning yourself in the organization to be as valuable as possible. So What is something you wish you had known when you first got into the coding field?
One thing I wish I'd known when I first got into coding is how to pace myself. I was trying to push ahead so hard and so fast that it wound up coming off as very, very obnoxious. And granted, some of it may have just been office politics, like my teammates noticing that because I had my CPC, I was treated a little bit differently or got different types of work maybe than they did. But I think I, at the time, I really reveled in that, and I shouldn't have. If I had been maybe a little bit more humble and a little bit more transparent with people, I think I would probably not have ruffled so many feathers in the beginning. For example, I had fairly early on taken a second job as a coding instructor at a local tech school, and I would spend my lunch breaks grading papers. And I think, people started to talk about that, like, oh, what's Victoria doing? She's working on company time. And if I had probably approach that ahead of time, like with my boss and with my coworkers, like, hey, I'm going to be sitting at my boss grading papers, but it's during my lunch break and then I'm going to put it away. It probably would have not caused so much upset. So I think maybe a little bit more transparency and just humility in the beginning would have helped out.
That's super helpful. What are some careers and opportunities that coding professionals may not be aware of?
One that I think is really coming up, and I think AAPC is just about ready to release this if they haven't already, is working as a scribe. Which again is not one of those things that you maybe in the long run want to be in, but I think it's such an awesome stepping stool to get into the medical field and start seeing like how the providers are using their EMRs, what templates they're using, and even start poking that skunk a little bit, like, hey, I noticed you only have 6 review of systems here. Do you know that you need 10 review of systems for it to be a complete review of systems? And that might bump up your level a little bit, or hey, I see that you code a lot of level 4s, but what I'm seeing here maybe isn't consistent with a level 4. So that's a good thought, and I'm really in support of that. The people have said that they've gotten a really good start working as scribes. Some other things that you might think about is these associations, like the American College of Surgeons, American College of Pediatrics. They have people in there that are expert coders. So while it might not be like a day-to-day coder position, it's a lot of, giving advice on things, putting together documentation of, here's what our society decided, how we're going to code these certain scenarios. There's a lot of different things you can get into, just maybe not necessarily introductory, but along the way. So like, for example, you host a podcast right now, and that's awesome, and that helps boost you up. So there's a lot of creative things that you can do, things like host webinars. People pay really good money for webinar hosts.
Those are some great hidden gems. I hadn't even thought about the scribe as an intro. So that's awesome. How about telling us how you got involved with your local AAPC chapter and leadership and how that's elevated your career?
Yeah, so when I started getting involved in the AAPC, there was not even a chapter really in my immediate area. So I wound up getting an email one day from a lady that's like, hey, we want to start a chapter in Reading. If anyone's interested, please show up at this place at this time. And I talked to all my other coworkers, and they're kind of like, yeah, I don't know, maybe I'll think about it. And, I showed up, and it was me and I think 4 other people, and we needed 5 people to start the chapter. So I kind of got roped into volunteering as an officer. And it's been great. I was serving as an officer in another chapter because I didn't really move, but I worked in a different area in Allentown, which I serve as officer as now. And the year that ICD-10 was supposed to go live, that year before that last delay for it, I was super active and super involved. And that was a huge asset for employers that were looking to hire me because I was so involved in this ICD-10 transition. And that was such a big thing. And I was putting together, training and tips and stuff for my chapter members. In fact, when I was at my chapter monitoring the ICD-10 training that was given by one of our AAPC gurus, Rita Genovese, who I think she was serving on the National Advisory Board at the time, she was the one who really gave me the push to say, hey, why don't you apply to go and speak at HealthCon? And that fact that I've spoken nationally has been huge in my career because it shows I have initiative and it shows that I have a big spine, like I can take on a room full of people. And these institutions are always looking for people that have that strong personality, that are going to not let the providers push back with them or staff push back with them, and then can kind of speak their language into them, and hold firm on things like, this is what I found in my audit and this is the way it's going to be.
We all had those conversations, Victoria, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a universal thing in coding.
For sure. And I think, like you said, you hit the nail on the head. It's the difference between the ones that are successful and the ones that are not successful is really sticking to your guns, knowing what your training entails, and that at the end of the day, guidelines are gold for coders.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the guidelines are always going to be your best friend. And knowing what's an authoritative source too, because you see so many people now that'll pull up all kinds of stuff from Google and coding blogs, or nothing against the AAPC forums, they're great, but you need to know how to backtrack to those authoritative sources and go, oh, you know what, this is for WPS Medicare and I'm not really in that jurisdiction, so this kind of doesn't actually apply to me.
For sure. So important to check your sources.
Yeah.
Why is it important for newbies and even veterans to attend local chapter meetings and get involved?
Okay, so here's my big thing on that. CEUs and those requirements for CEUs are not just about ticking off a box so that you can keep your credential. These are education opportunities that your chapter is providing, and they are often very crucial information. They are things that are going to make you much more well-rounded in your career. They're going to spark discussions. They're going to spark discussions and then relationships with your fellow coders. And sometimes you can take that role where you're helping someone else and helping them maybe find a job or understand something better. And other times you can be the one that's helping someone else. It helps keep you fresh. And there is such a thing as like a coder funk. And it's happened to the best of us where you're coding and coding and coding, and you almost go on like this autopilot where you're just coding and coding, and you have that sixth sense of what things are, and you wind up accidentally, totally unintentionally making some careless errors because you're just on autopilot and you're just pounding out codes. So you need to do things like go out and network so you can keep yourself motivated and keep yourself fresh and keep yourself out of those coding funks.
Those are such great tips. So what are your top 3 pro tips for coding career success?
So I had alluded to this a little bit before, but take any projects that get offered to you. So volunteering to be part of the team shows that you are part of the big picture, and it's one of the best ways that you have to show off your skills. Even if it's something that you're not really directly interested in, make that small sacrifice and show off that you're willing to be part of the team. Teamwork is huge. My second pro tip is always be willing to learn new things. So when you're listening to these webinars, don't just tune them out. You need this information, not just the CEUs. So always be learning and growing. I mean, there's the only way you're going to succeed in this industry. I've seen so many people stumble because they learned something 8 years ago and didn't realize that it changed because they didn't keep up with the new information. And it can leave not only bad taste in people's mouths as far as your authority, but can be compliance problems as well if you just don't realize that the rules may have changed. My top pro tip, and I always say this, is coding is not about knowing all of the answers. It is about knowing where to find them. And this isn't just knowing about, how to use your books. It's also where to get that reliable information, where to get authoritative guidance, and knowing even who you can reach out to with specialty questions, having those people in your back pocket from your network and knowing, oh my gosh, something came across my desk for hernia repairs. And you know what? I know my friend over at, ABC Hospital is the expert on general surgery. I'll reach out to her. And even just knowing who might know the coding director at the hospital that I want to get hired at, and can they maybe give you a good word? And even if it's something like lending a hand, making snacks or giveaways or something for your chapter, just knowing where to find all of those answers and just having that network of people to help you out is crucial.
Huge. I love your pro tips. They were awesome. Thanks for sharing your tips and insights with us, Victoria. We loved having you.
Oh, thank you so much, Toni. I really hope the podcast is gonna be a huge hit. I think it will be, because you are just so phenomenal, and everything that you've been doing with your expert witnesses and with alpha coding experts has just been fantastic.
Thank you, Victoria. I really appreciate that. So this concludes today's episode with Victoria Moll. I hope that her pro tips will help you find success. And I hope that you'll join me next Monday. But until next week, thank you for listening to Alpha Coding Podcast. We'll see you next Monday.
For more information about medical coding and billing pro tips, including how to hire alpha coding experts, follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or visit our website at www.alphacodingexperts.com.